Hello, hello, this is Patty Joe. I am doing just a little snippet of something just to kind of dive into it. Well, not dive in, kind of stick our toes into this one. This is by request, Miss Joy. I'm listening. I saw your comment about this trial is Bradley Yawn. I believe this is Illinois. And this is another monstrosity who apparently I didn't know he represented himself. I knew a little bit about the case itself, which has to do with a lady that was carjacked and he kidnapped her or um, in some way restrained her, assaulted her over a period of time, just monstrous things. And she actually, I mean, they say lived for 33 days after. She survived 33 days after and then succumbed to her the injuries on 12/12/21. Her name being Christine Lohman, known as Tina, I believe. Lohman Schmidt. Christine Lohman Schmidt. So this occurred on November 9th, 2021. That was a big month for all these people, but I didn't know he represented himself, so I have not seen tons of this. But this is a little tiny snippet. I say it's a couple of things from the sidebar. Jesse Weber, person who's on Law and Crime Network, who goes through and puts these little snippets together. And I just thought maybe we'd take a quick look and see if we want to like dive into. I've seen everything from day 2 on, but let's take a look at this.
Argument. I spoke on how being logical is logical.
What a wild ride the Bradley Yawn trial has been, with a defendant representing himself.
I like doing these because the lawyer who does this, Jesse Weber, is so smart and really succinct. So kind of learn a lot, and probably some of what I say comes directly from him. I'm not gonna lie, just from watching the way he sees it. This is the lady. Look at how pretty she is. Oh my gosh, I wish I could be that pretty.
And the kidnapping and sexual assault of a 77-year-old woman. We break down some of the most outrageous moments from court. Welcome.
I have seen a couple of his little snippets where he says like things that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Like right out of the Darrell Brooks playbook.
The Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
So this is the sidebar.
Well, out in Illinois, we were covering a rather unusual trial on the Law and Crime Network. Not sure you heard about it. It was the criminal case of Bradley Yawn. Yawn was charged and ultimately convicted of the kidnapping and attack of a 77-year-old woman, a great-grandmother named Christine Tina Schmidt Lohman. It happened back on November 9th, 2021. He sexually assaulted her in her car on the side of the road, chased her into her home, broke in, physically threw her down the stairs, and then raped her.
Okay, so my apologies. Christine Schmidt Lohman. I got the names backwards. I think I got it off of something on my phone. Wow. Threw her down her stairs.
She actually died over a month later on December 12th, 2021. Yawn wasn't charged with her murder, but it was a question of whether or not the trauma of that event ultimately did kill her. Just absolutely horrifying to think.
Anybody over the age of 65, and even really 55, a fall can be eventually a fatal event. And I used to teach my paramedic students that a lot, that anybody who's elderly, it's not just the ones on blood thinners or whatever, anybody who's elderly, a fall is balance and arthritis and some of the things that we think are normal things that happen to us. They're not. That aging process is pathology there. So when they fall, that is that can be critical, and they all need to be seen, and many of them should be seen at trauma centers. So, the fact that I didn't know they didn't, what they charged him with, but yeah, he killed her. He killed her.
Think about. But what was absolutely bizarre was the defendant's decision to represent himself during trial. Always very interesting when defendants do this, because it usually leads to just outrageous moments in court. And that is what we saw here in the Bradley Yan trial. And where better to start off than with Mr. Yan's opening statement.
There's not many smiles today. However, I did see some yesterday. I appreciate those smiles. That has brought a light to my soul as I've been stuck here in this county jail.
That is totally worse than Daryl. Thanks for smiling at me. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for smiling. Oh, I could
Tormented for the last 19 months.
Like, you tormented that lady for all those hours, and then did she even wake up after? Oh my god. Oh my god. I don't know if I could do this, Miss Joy. I don't know. I can't even get through.
I ask you to forgive my appearance.
Jesse's.
This is not normally me. I normally have hair. I do not expect you to feel sorry for me by any means.
Yes, you do.
We all know what incredible and impossible means. Impossible means not possible. Credible means it's not credible. I also intend to prove you improper procedure.
What?
Coincidences. Throughout this trial, you'll see some of the most major coincidences you have ever seen in your lives. My little brother used to run to Mother and say, "Mom, BB hit me." BB was my sister. He used to say, "BB hit me." Mom would say, "Well, my lovely young man, where are the marks to prove such?"
Such.
Well, my mom, show me the marks. He could not show any marks. Mother would say, "I can't tell where the marks are." True story. Come to find out, my brother only had the remote taken from him. Scooby-Doo was his favorite. He would watch it end on end for hours.
So? So what?
During them times when my brother would make them claims, we would all come to find out in the end that he had just simply walked away from the TV. Sis picked up the remote and he wanted the TV back. The tells he was telling, you will see that today, here, and throughout this trial, there are major tales told. Tales that are tall.
Yeah.
I love this guy. I love you, Jesse. I don't want to hear what Jesse has to say, because I want to. Oh my god. Oh, maybe I do want to hear it. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god, I love you.
Now, for our listeners and for those who can't watch this on YouTube, unfortunately, you can't see the reaction from Prosecutor Assistant State Attorney Josh Jones, because it appears he's given the look of, what is this guy talking about? By the way, we see this a lot of times with defendants representing themselves. Their arguments don't always make sense. They focus.
He really worked on that too. He was like, what story can I tell that would make it seem like I just took the remote away from her? What?
Focus on the sympathy factor.
Oh
Remember,
my God.
they're not trained attorneys. But this was just the beginning. How about we move on to the time
we
when
might have
Mr.
to
Jones made the court aware of Jan's cousin, Travis Bloom, making a disturbance in the courthouse and how Jan's argument backfired on him.
Your Honor, yesterday, an individual by the name of Travis Bloom attempted to enter the courtroom while the proceedings were occurring. He was stopped by security and told he could enter at breaks. At that point, he stayed outside the courtroom, but was heard outside the courtroom making very loud comments that were heard by Sheriff's Deputy Sam Smith inside the courtroom.
Your Honor, throughout my time here, my family has been repetitively denied. I understand Travis Bloom is an idiot. I understand that, fully understand that. He holds a good heart.
Do you understand you're an idiot too? I mean, I haven't even watched 2 minutes of this and I see you're an idiot.
They didn't arrest him yesterday. If he did all them things, they probably should have arrested him, right? I mean, these are...
Well, is that like your brother not having any marks when the sister took the remote away? Just because they didn't arrest him means he didn't do anything wrong. I mean, that's the same logic that Daryl used with, well, I didn't get arrested for hitting her that day, so I didn't hit her.
They're very serious matters. To limit him from the courtroom simply because of this is ridiculous. If a person does not know that they cannot come in during a time that is not a recess, then maybe they should be explained that, or maybe there should be notices posted on a wall somewhere.
The gentleman in the back courtroom by the door with law enforcement, what's your name?
Deputy Goldman.
You step outside the door and see if there's anything posted about their entering the courtroom during a recess.
There is, Your Honor.
And what does it say, sir?
It says, you may only enter the courtroom at recess or breaks.
And you were here yesterday?
Okay, so if you didn't hear that, the guy said you can only enter the courtroom at recess and on breaks. And it's a sign outside of the courtroom. That's what that deputy had just testified to.
Hey, sir?
I was.
And was that sign posted on the door at all times?
I believe so.
Have a seat, Mr. Yan. Your motion or objection is overruled. Your, as you described, idiot relative Travis Bloom should have read the door sign before he tried to enter the courtroom, and so he was advised of the court rules.
Maybe don't argue, well, there should be signs so people know if they can enter the court or not, when in reality, there is a sign.
How would he know?
That back and forth, though, it was outside the presence of the jury. Not sure it really mattered in the end for Mr. Yan, but speaking of moments outside the jury, there was this moment as well. And this is when Yan argued to the court that witnesses were seeking guidance from the prosecutors.
Several times throughout these witness testimonies thus far, witnesses have looked directly over at state's attorneys for guidance. Mr. Lohmeyer just did a moment ago.
Mr. Yan, have you noticed either of the assistant state's attorneys giving an answer to the witness?
I tried to look and catch it this time, but no, I have not, Your Honor.
Okay, neither has the court. And so where the witness looks while answering questions, I cannot control. But unless the assistant state's attorneys are indicating some kind of answer that they should be giving, there's no reason to basically uphold your objection.
Okay, so much like Daryl Brooks, these guys don't want to look at this monster. That's what I'm thinking. But I can't wait to find out. Ms. Joy, we're going to do this. We're going to do this.
Now, if that actually happened, he would have an argument. Here, he really didn't. There's nothing to back that up. And we've seen that in other cases too, right? Pro se defendants arguing that there's this collusion between the witnesses and the prosecution. From our experience here on Law and Crime, not always a successful
argument. It have to be if there's so much evidence.
I really want to move on to this moment because this was particularly outrageous. I'm going to give you some context here. So at one point, Mr. Yan is questioning Tim Schmidt. This is Christine's husband, well, now widow. And Yan seemed to try to point out that Mr. Schmidt didn't call 911 on the night his wife said she was attacked. And despite Schmidt saying he did call 911, Yan wanted to impeach him with phone records. The problem here is that those 911 phone calls are not recorded as phone records. And so these phone records are inadmissible. Jan can't ask Schmidt about them, and he can't introduce them because he has no legal basis to do so. He has to lay a foundation. He has no foundation. Well, Jan didn't quite get that, or maybe he chose to ignore that. And the court instructed him he couldn't talk about this with Mr. Schmidt. Well, he moved forward with it, and Mr. Jones, the prosecutor, he got quite heated.
And do you recall what time you made a 911 call?
It was a little after 6 o'clock, right after I went home.
And if I said that there...
Objection, Your Honor. I know what he's going to ask next, Your Honor, and if it's going to be an objectionable question that the jury is not allowed to hear.
Just to refresh your memory, you stated you were subpoenaed for phone records, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. We just dealt with this.
Okay, so I'm going to look into this because from what I'm understanding, and I don't know, I have worked at 911 centers, but I don't know all the ins and outs of that. The way 911 it works is their records, if you want their records, you subpoena the 911 records. You FOIA Act, or you Freedom of Information Act, the 911 records. That, I guess on his, I don't know if on that, if I dialed 911, I'm guessing because it stops your phone from receiving calls until you release it from the emergency. But as far as the records are concerned, 911, if you want to know if somebody called 911, you get those records. So he's trying to say that these records prove that this guy didn't call. Well, he did, because I think they eventually prove it.
The court sustained that objection.
Your Honor.
We need to go down a new path.
I'm just letting the witness know where we're at, Your Honor.
He was here, he knows, so next question, sir.
Okay. And you did provide those records, true?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered, and we...
It doesn't even matter if the guy called 911. I mean, I'm just throwing this out there, but what if he just drove her to the hospital himself? Then no call to 911 would be made. That doesn't make him anything. She eventually ends up in the hospital, and that's clear because it's where she passes away. So I'm thinking,
gone down this path.
Mr. Schmidt,
The objection.
are you aware that there was no 911?
Objection, Your Honor.
I will sustain the objection, Mr.
There was
Young.
no 911.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll ask the bailiff to have the jury return to the jury room, and we'll address this.
And it seems to only get worse for Jan, because later on he questioned Sergeant Jake McMahon with the Adams County Sheriff's Department about those phone records. And guess what? I don't know if this was a mistake or he was basically caught like a deer in headlights, but for his supposed argument that there was no 911 phone call that day, the report seems to indicate otherwise.
The CFS report, which is also known as a 911 report, correct?
I know it as a dispatch ticket, but I
Dispatch.
believe CFS, yes.
And, Your Honor, I'd like to publish this to the jury.
Okay.
It states, male came and attacked his wife and broke into the house and stole the car, correct?
Yes, that's what it reads.
It's fine. It says Quincy, Adams County 911 call for service report, doesn't it?
Yes,
That means there was a 911 call, doesn't it?
correct.
The danger of representing yourself, folks, not always the best decision. But let's close this out with arguably the last outrageous moment in this trial, and that is during Bradley Jan's closing argument, his final attempt to persuade this jury that he is innocent. And it definitely had some arguably head-scratching points.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today we're here on some sick, heinous matters. Matters that if I were that person, I wouldn't care if I was a prosecutor or not. I wouldn't sit here and call the defendant a man I'd call him a piece of excuse my terminology, Your Honor, but I'd call him a piece of because that's what he would have been. Mr. Jones has put on a great presentation today. Very great. Just like Miss Keck did on Monday last week. She put on a great presentation. Very abnormal and not her normal voice. Not her normal voice at all. She come forward with a presentation that seems so unnatural just to try to persuade you people. Just to try to persuade you.
It's kind of her job.
You see the woman right here on the screen? That's from a video. Does it appear if she's hurt, battered, beat? Persuasion. You can persuade anybody to do anything with words. You can persuade them with actions. You can persuade them with evidence. Sometimes evidence isn't evidence. I'm not a heinous, perverted creep. I do not go around robbing people. My two greatest friends are elderly people. One just happens to be 76 years old.
That is just like saying I'm not a racist because my best friend is black. Hold on a second. Let me finish this one up, okay, Brian? Just FYI. I'm recording, just so you know. It's okay, no worries. Okay, so yeah, I didn't do it because my best friend is 76.
She was my next door neighbor. Never. My best friend in the world, he's 62 years old. Just turned 62. My mama taught me better than this. She didn't teach me to go out and do these things, nor did I do them.
Yes, she did.
Please stop, man.
A little all over the place, very colorful. He tried to show his emotion. But look, he was appealing to the jurors in that last moment. Despite his best efforts, the jury didn't believe him. They convicted him of home invasion with a deadly weapon, criminal sexual assault, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated vehicular hijacking, aggravated criminal sexual assault, and burglary. Sentencing is set for September 1st, where it's my understanding this 36-year-old, now convicted felon, faces a minimum of 70 years in prison.
7 years.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you here on
Interesting.
Sidebar.
Maybe
Thank you
maybe-
so much for joining us. Please subscribe
Right
on
after
Apple
Daryl.
Podcasts, Spotify.
And thank you to Law and Crime Sidebar. That was really interesting. That would be something I'd like to go for. Okay, like and subscribe.